It's comedy night here on CU at USC. Tonight we have two guests, and they're both on comedy groups here on campus. So if you want a good laugh, you won't want to miss this one. Stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of CU at USC. Tonight is comedy night. We have two guests here with me tonight, and they're both in comedy groups on campus. Thank you so much, George Saba, for being here.
Oh, sure.
And also Tuesday Grant.
Of course, thank you.
George, you are on Merrymen.
Yeah.
And Tuesday you're on the Suspenders.
Yes.
So I guess let's start with you, George. Tell me about Merrymen. It's an improv group.
Yeah, so we're one of the 4 improv groups on campus. We're mixed form, which distinguishes us from the other ones, which means we do both long form and short form. Short form being like what you see on Whose Line Is It Anyway, long form being like more scene-based stuff. And a mainstream comparison might be like what you see at UCB shows, if that nicks an audience.
What is UCB shows?
Oh, okay. That's what I was. It's the Upright Citizens Brigade. It's started by like Amy Poehler and then a couple other like famous improvisers, and basically they funnel like talent through to like SNL, or it's like a fame machine basically.
So Merrymen kind of. Do you guys like model yourselves after the Upright Citizens Brigade?
Well, there's like. Improv is like a very culty thing. Like a lot of things make fun of it now that it's come into the zeitgeist. But like, there are multiple schools of thought, I guess. There's IO, which is like Improv Olympic, which like UCB stems from that, and then there's also Second City, which is even more like notable, and IO stems from that. And then there's also Groundlings, which is their own thing, and all these like schools of thought, I guess, play some influence into a lot of just improv that exists.
Yeah. Now Tuesday, you're on the Suspenders on campus, but that's sketch comedy.
Yeah.
So how is that different from Merrymen?
So we're the only sketch comedy troupe on campus, and what we do is for approximately 4 weeks, we do a writing workshop where we come into rehearsal every day, and we're writing sketches, we're pitching sketches, we're doing rewrites. And then this weekend, actually, we decide a script. So we pick about 25 sketches, and we start rehearsing them, casting them, getting props and costumes, staging the whole thing to create an hour, 15 approximately, long show that we perform once a semester.
So it's very different from improv. You're not.
Yes.
Are you doing any improv in your shows?
Well, we do improv games to like get the group warmed up, but when we do those games, it's very obvious why we're not an improv troupe. We have a lot of fun, but we're lucky no one's watching us. So we use improv as a tool to kind of get out of our heads and just start like throwing ideas out there. But we're much more. We're a bunch of thinkers, and we like to sit there and like work hard and do rewrites and things like that. We're not loose enough to be improvisers.
Well, you still have to be kind of loose. You're still doing comedy and being funny.
Yeah, but like I think why a lot of people on the troupe and why I like it is I like getting to get at what makes something funny and work on it until we get it just how we want it, and like really figuring out like what makes this scene, this sketch, this character in particular funny.
Mm-hmm. Have both of you always known that were you guys always funny from little kid age? Were you the funny one in the family?
I always like to think I've been hilarious. No. I come from a family that doesn't think I'm funny at all, so it's always very jarring for them to see me do things.
Yeah, I've always been a goober. Like, my name's Tuesday. Like, I can't take myself too seriously. Like, I'm like a walking joke, So my family has always like known I'm just like a little nutcase. But it's, I think I'm funny. I hope other people think I'm funny
I
once
love
in a
that.
while.
You have to have some. You have to be confident about it, or else. How do you guys get up there on stage and expose yourself to everyone? Because what if they don't think you're funny? Does that worry you guys?
What I've like come to do is if like I'm having fun, then that's like my priority. Like obviously I care about if the audience enjoys the show, but like there's a sense where like if I'm not enjoying myself, even if the audience is enjoying it, then what's the point? So I put myself first, and that sounds very selfish because it's the definition of what selfish is. But like I think you do have to have some degree like that mentality.
What about for you?
Yeah, that's what has made Suspenders so special is, I come from an actually like very dramatic theatrical training background. And it wasn't until fairly recently that I started writing and performing comedy. And I'm very lucky in that I get to perform material I'm passionate about and I'm personally invested in, and that I believe in 100%, because I get to be there from, even if I didn't necessarily write the sketch, I'm there from when the idea was pitched and helped create it and craft it. So of course I get nervous and I get stressed out, and I'm like, oh, like of course 10 minutes before the show I'm like, they're gonna hate it, no one's gonna laugh, it's gonna be terrible. But deep down, like in my little gut, I know that I believe like in what we're doing and what we've created and what we're about to go out there and do. And once you have that, then it's easy to just go out and have fun and enjoy the ride.
Speaking of those moments, have you been on stage and expected someone to think that what you said or what you had prepared to say was funny, but didn't get that response?
Yes, yeah.
How did you handle it?
It's one of like I read a piece of advice from someone. I can't cite the source, so this is plagiarism now. And according to USC, but basically when you're bombing, to like cherish the bomb, because there are very few feelings like it where you're the utmost vulnerable and you have nothing left, and it's like it makes other situations better. But like there's a positive outlook to bombing.
That's interesting. I like that. That's a good way to look at life even.
Yeah.
Have you had that experience as well with, having scripts written for you? Did you think something was going to be funny and then didn't get that response?
Yeah, it's happened with things I've written, especially like when I pitch a sketch. Like I'll go in and I'll be like, oh, the group's gonna love this. They're gonna think this is so funny. And then we read it and it's just like, after you read a sketch and there's that moment of like silence before people start giving notes, you're just like, oh, I gotta quit. Like I have to leave the troupe. Like this is it. Suspenders is done. We're not doing a show this semester. But again, like George said, it's one of those things where like when it happens, you have to appreciate it, because then it makes it so much better when you don't have that. And no one's gonna be funny. You're not gonna hit it out of the park every single time. But it's just knowing that for things to get better, you have to get worse. And you don't know how good it feels to do really, really well until you've gone out and, you're covered in like pasta sauce and still no one's laughing. So
I would laugh.
Yeah.
Just so you know. George, for you, you're doing a lot of improv, so you're just thinking on your feet. Have you had that best moment ever where you got the best reaction? Do you remember that?
Oh, woof. No, which I'm sorry that puts a kibosh on your question, but I think there's something about like improv that it's just, sorry if this sounds pretentious, it's very like transient, in that like it exists and then it doesn't. So I, like a day after a show I will forget the show entirely, regardless if it was good or bad. Sorry that didn't answer your question.
How do you prepare for those moments? Do you do improv warm-ups with the team? How do you practice?
Yeah, we do a lot of warm-ups, and then like in rehearsal we'll work out the show, like what games we're gonna do, and then we'll just run like a long form like series of scenes, and then as far as like just the macro stuff, not necessarily per joke, but like each move, like what characters we come on as, how we decide to like heighten certain scenes. That's what we'll analyze, and more like structurally rather than just like what nitpicky joke we made.
Do you have a favorite warm-up or a favorite game?
Warm-up wise, the Merrymen created a warm-up called Time of Death, which basically we get in a circle and we all, bear with me, we all chant time of death, time of death. And then one person goes in the like middle of the circle and then they will start to freestyle a song about how they died and at what time they died. It's dark, but it gets the brain moving, and it's always very silly.
So is that kind of like just making up a song on the top of your on your feet?
Yeah, except it always follows like just a really dumb like cadence, like da 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 da. And it's like it just sort of organically became that. It's really dumb, but it's fun.
You don't ever feel embarrassed at all when you're making up silly characters or anything like that?
I think like what I've come to learn just as far as like things that are embarrassing is that with improv, every answer you give is the best answer because it's truly a team effort. And I know I said before about being selfish and like having fun, but I guess I meant like with the group having fun. So like with each of those things, I lost my train of thought, bear with me. Okay, and we're back. With each of those things, you trust that like the group has your back. So no matter what you say, you're adding to the scene, and then someone else who happens to be on their game a little more can take that and make it good.
Mm-hmm. Tuesday, for you, earlier you were talking about how you've had a lot of theater experience. Mm-hmm. So in high school, did you do a bunch of shows?
Yeah, I went to a performing arts high school where I was a theater, you had majors, and I was a theater major. Oh, wow. And there I did mostly like heavy, dramatic, like, oh yes, I'm an actor things. So then coming to college, I'm also a theater major here at USC, and my first year I was cast in those dramatic roles, and then my sophomore year, one of the professors cast me as a 60-year-old woman, and I was like, I can't.
A 60-year-old?
A 60-year-old woman.
Wow.
I was like, I can't do this. There's no way. Like, this is going to be terrible. And he really pushed me to like let go and just go out there and be fully in it and not care about what they thought, how you look, like if people buy it. And then after that, like comedy started making sense to me, and that sense of like being able to go out there and be so free and so ridiculous and so heightened and experience that with an audience is what I think like makes sketch comedy so special.
How do you practice your lines and making sure that you deliver them in a funny way, I guess you could say?
Well, one of my acting professors gave me this advice and said that things are only funny when they're rooted in truth. So even when we're doing a comedic sketch, we still go about the lines and go about rehearsal going, what does this character want? Who is this person, and how would they try to get what they want? And once you answered those questions, it's much easier to just let go and do the scene, and the humor kind of comes through naturally if the writing's good and the character's strong. And just rehearsing it and getting comfortable with the blocking and the character and the other people in the scene. That's really how we go about it.
Before we go to commercial break, I just wanted to ask you, what for you was the biggest difference playing serious roles and then switching to comedy? Because they're very different.
I found that for me, they're not that different. It's the things you're saying and the things you're doing are different, but how connected you are to the character and believing in what you're doing is similar. There's just a lot more like food props and ridiculous costumes and things like that in comedy. But for me, they're actually fairly similar, and I love it all.
That's awesome. I wouldn't have guessed that. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then after the break, be sure to stay tuned because we're going to be playing Heads Up, and our two skilled comedians here and actors will be very good at it, so it'll be very funny. Stay tuned.
Sometimes you feel like life is fading away,
but TV's there for you night and day. make our funding.
So turn on your TVs and open up your hearts. So next year we don't have to broadcast from a parking lot. So please keep us on air.
I wanna get a job somewhere.
'Cause he wants to make shows for HBO. So please keep us on air. Please keep us on air. We wanna get a job somewhere. 'Cause we wanna make shows for HBO. So please keep us on air.
Welcome back to See You at USC. I'm here with two USC students. Oh, we're about to play Heads Up, if you heard my phone going on. But you guys are both you're on a sketch comedy team here on
Yes.
campus, and you're an improv.
Yeah.
So very different, but similar. You guys should be good actors at this.
Should be.
Oh, okay, we're gonna start playing Heads Up. It's a charades game. So I will
Ah,
kayo blood.
cathedral.
Dinosaur? T-Rex.
No.
Vampire.
No.
Close enough.
Despicable Me. Minions.
But
Bugs Bunny.
That's all, folks.
No,
That's all, folks.
Pig.
Yeah, famous
That's
pig.
all.
Oh, the Porky Pig.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
I
it.
really got it.
He's a maverick.
Uh-huh.
I can see Alaska from my house.
Well, she lives in Alaska. so
Russia!
you'd hope that she does.
I'm not gonna get this. Well, what is it?
Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin.
Oh, I would not get that. Did I? Okay,
No.
whatever.
Two.
Oh gosh.
The lakes, Ann Arbor,
Okay, that one
Michigan.
was
It was
hard.
We got
Michigan.
some weird
Michigan?
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an accent?
That was our
yeah,
thought when we were
apparently.
given Michigan as an accent.
That's really funny. I did not expect Michigan to be an accent. Do you guys do warm-ups like this at all?
We do games for warm-ups.
Yeah.
We do we do a game called Beastie Boys Rap, where you have two people and one person gives a name and then the other one has to do kind of like a line from like a song that ends with a word that rhymes with the name. So we do things like that.
That's kind of similar to the game that you were talking about.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I
Yeah.
think the idea of like creating a song and stuff. Yeah.
That's really hard because you have to think on your feet
yeah.
and think of words. You can't just act it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of acting it out, I'm going to play one more. It's the animal one. So this
Okay.
one should be easier for me. I think I know my animals a little bit better than I know my accents.
Or we know our states.
Yeah.
apparently.
Exactly.
Okay. Snake. Python. That's not a python? Oh, God. Cobra.
Yes.
Dog. Cow. Dog.
Specific kind of dog.
Praying dog?
A small barrel on my neck.
What?
Right? Am I right about that kind of dog?
Neck.
Yeah,
They
that's what I
have
said.
the barrels on their neck.
That's why I said a small barrel on my neck.
I'm not
I
going to
said
get
back.
this. Groundhog.
No.
It's just- it's
Saint
Saint
Bernard.
Bernard.
Oh, I
That's
would.
the prank. Oh.
Oh god. There's water.
Electric eel.
Yes.
Lion. Oh, good tiger.
Forest. But also on all fours.
Yeah. Also down. Just determined to be on the floor.
What?
All right,
a
well,
salmon?
Time is up. I definitely did not get that
Bear.
one.
It was a grizzly bear.
A bear. Oh my gosh. How would you do that? That's hard.
Apparently that's we did it.
Better actors than us could do it.
Yeah.
I guess you could do maybe like eating honey.
Oh,
Oh.
in retrospect, yes.
Winnie
I don't
the
know. That
Pooh.
would be hard. Oh yeah, he's like a big tummy.
Yeah, with his little red shirt.
Yeah.
So for you, Tuesday, do you
Yeah.
have a favorite game that you play in terms of warming up? I know George was talking about his favorite one.
Yeah, I really, the troupe really likes Beastie Boys rap. I have very bad rhythm, so like I'm not a fan of that game. Whenever I can step out, I do. We play a game called Woosh Bong, which I know a lot of troops play. I don't know if you guys do.
We don't actively play it, but I know it.
Yeah, that's a fun one. It's just basically a game where you're in a circle, and the idea is you're passing around like, just like you go like whoosh to pass it, but then you keep adding more and more rules to it, so you can do different things and try and mess the other people in the circle up.
Would you say it's hard for people who are interested in getting into comedy to, just set their foot in the door?
I'm inclined to say no. I feel like if you find an outlet and like you want to do it, you'll find it, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think is the best way to go about even doing that?
I think the biggest step, and maybe why it seems hard, is just getting over being nervous about it or worrying about it or going, what if they don't think I'm funny? What if I don't do well? It's just getting out there and looking stupid and not doing well a couple of times, and then once you finally start doing well, you're like, oh, I see what it is. So just like going and having fun and trying your best until something happens.
Yeah. Now, do you guys go out to comedy shows or improv shows and kind of watch them to see what you want to take away from it?
Yeah, they encourage that a lot, just because there is a lot like you can learn from people who are professional doing it. I don't know why I put air quotes around professional. They are. We're seeing them do shows.
A professional improv. It's a career. Yeah, I even go to the improv shows around campus. And UCB and Groundlings and things like that. I think it's really important to know what's going on, and there are definitely like trends in comedy and trends especially in like sketch comedy. So knowing what's happening and what other people are doing.
What do you mean by that? What's a trend? Can you give an example?
Like for example, like when YouTube first started getting popular, vlogs and like kind of longer video sketches were popular, like things that were around like 8 minutes and 9 minutes, and now we're seeing a lot of like Vine humor and things like that, where like sketches are now like as short as possible, or they're like a minute. So
Interesting.
yeah, knowing like what people think is funny, like you have something I think you probably deal with too, is like you have to know what's happening in the world around you to be able to make fun of it.
Yeah. Do you find that it's hard when a lot of, I mean, I've just heard friends talk about this, where a lot of comedy that's funny has to be, vulgar words?
Not necessarily, no. There's like plenty of clean humor. Like, I'm an idiot, so I think like really dumb, silly things. Like, this is just me, I can't speak on behalf of the world. I think like if you saw like if you took like an animal, like a squirrel, and you'd be like, that's a weird looking cat, I think that's really funny. But again, I'm an idiot. I also think dads are very funny. I don't know why you took me on for comedy night as I say more things.
Everyone loves dads.
Yeah.
I love them.
Like the different kinds of dads?
I think like just the reference of dads is really silly. Like,
Yeah.
like they're
dad,
grown
yeah.
men who do things. I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm not proffering
Trying to
this
be
one.
cool.
Yeah.
They're like guys who like try to be cool and just inherently
Yeah, Tuesday
aren't.
gets it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I always want to put dads in sketches.
Yeah.
They're the
So
best.
do you have a favorite type of dad?
Whoa. I'll get in trouble if I don't say my dad. I guess this is a weird line of conversation.
All right, we'll stray away from it. Do you guys have a favorite comedian, I guess, that you look up to, or someone who does improv?
As far as improvisers go, I'm a really big fan of Zach Woods. He was on the show Veep. He played Gabe on The Office. He's also on Silicon Valley. Yeah.
He still does a lot at UCB.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I think he's like hysterical.
I grew up watching the movie Tommy Boy with Chris Farley, so he was like my biggest comedic inspiration. And The Daily Show. Growing up, like my parents let me watch The Daily Show like way too early, but I loved that kind of humor in writing, and like Jon Stewart was a big influence for me growing up.
Now, you guys are both working on shows. You have a show coming up was it the end of the semester?
Yeah, our show is November 3rd through 6th, so right before the election. We're in the Massman Theater, and we do 6 shows. So that's coming up, and that's what our troupe is working towards. That's our only show this semester.
Is that on campus?
It is on campus. The Massman Theater is in the DRC. It's kind of near like the bookstore, that area. It's like over by
Like the baseball
GFS.
field?
Yeah, it's right by the baseball
Okay.
field. Mhm.
Okay. So what are you most looking forward to about your show this semester?
My favorite part of the show every semester is we always have a really fun opening number that's like dancing and singing and things like that. So getting to work on that, I'm really looking
Are
forward
you
to.
also a dancer and singer?
No, which is where the comedy comes in. They always
Gotcha.
love, like, their thing is to make me dance as much as possible because I'm absolutely the worst dancer on the troupe, like hands down.
So that's why it's funny.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, make Tuesday and get out there and do the dance. So I'm like, okay, for you guys.
Now, George, you actually have a show tonight.
Yeah, we have a show tonight in like the campus center above Lemonade. We turn it like this conference room into like this cool black boxy theater every week. So there's that show at 10:30, and then also we have a show like every Thursday. And next Thursday we have our murder mystery show, which is like we do this form where it's sort of like an Agatha Christie clue type mystery where one of us is the detective, and it's very silly. And if not tonight, because I understand it's short notice, that one I would highly advocate for. It's always fun.
So for next week's one, does the audience have to figure out who was the murderer, or you guys within yourselves are trying to figure that out?
We within ourselves figured out we have one person who like is the detective, and then they will sort of like based off of whatever like ridiculous things that come about, they're like, I can turn this into the solution to a mystery.
Now, you said you guys put on a show every single week.
Yes.
Is that how you kind of practice and get better?
We have rehearsed twice a week as well, and I think the shows are more of like, let's see if we rehearsed right. Yeah, but it also like adds to it. Like I think any sort of like doing of a thing, like sort of like you do run-throughs for the show, and then doing the actual show helps you do shows in the future. So with that, I think it's helpful.
Do you think that, for both of you, do you want to pursue comedy as a career?
That's the dream. That's the goal. Yeah.
That's the goal. What about for you, George?
Yeah, I'd say the same. Like fingers crossed. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you a few fun questions. Just 3 light, fun questions so we can end on a positive note. If you,
Yeah. Whoa.
no, that's not what I meant. If a movie could represent your life, what movie would it be?
Like an already existing movie.
Yeah.
You go first.
I mean, I said this movie already, but I think Tommy Boy, because it's like I'm just trying my best, but like nothing works, and like I get locked in airplane bathrooms a lot. So.
Oh my gosh.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Airplane, just because it's like pure silliness. But I like movies that are just purely silly like that. I really like Pee-wee's Big Holiday, which came on Netflix this summer, and I really like that movie.
And I also have an interesting question that one of our producers gave us. But if any animal was the size of Godzilla and you were to ride it into battle, what animal would it be? Really quickly off the top of your head.
Yeah, a Pomeranian, hands down.
That's kind of terrifying, but so cute.
Yeah.
Like a pygmy marmoset. They're like very small monkeys, but I'd like to see them very big.
Okay, that's a great way to end the show. Thank you guys both so much for being here. It was great playing Heads Up. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in. You can watch us every weeknight right here on Trojan Vision. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow night. Good night.
You're watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out at trojanvision.com and like us on Facebook.